Good Yontif, everyone. Several of the times over the course of my career, I've attempted to change the content of my sermon at the last moment. One was when Sadat flew to Jerusalem and made peace with Egypt. The second was after 9/11, and I did change my sermon, and I gave a sermon called "We Are All Israelis." In light of what is going on in Israel this week, I mulled over changing my sermon entirely, but decided against it. I wanted you to know, because after you hear this sermon, you'll say, why didn't he talk about Israel? I will be speaking about Israel at various times in the high holidays. How could I not? A year since the devastating attack on October 7th, which changed the course of Israel's history, of Jewish history forever. And still the hostages remain, and people die, and Israel is at war. It has been a year of constant beat of despair and emotions that have gone up and down like a roller coaster for a year. And so it goes without question that Israel is on my mind and on all of our minds, and I will talk about Israel another time. In the meantime, tonight we keep our brothers and sisters in Medinat Yisrael in our prayers, please God. And I would rather return to a tradition I started many years ago, which was to have my sermon on Erev Rosh Hashanah, not about something that is topical, something that is in the news, but something a little bit more emotional, more sentimental, because that, after all, is how I greet the new year, with a sense of hopefulness and not despair. And so as I stand here tonight delivering my last Erev Rosh Hashanah sermon, after nearly 37 incredible years with our community and 40 years in the rabbinate, I should get an award, right? I am filled with a mixture of emotions, gratitude, nostalgia, and yes, a bit of melancholy. It feels like just yesterday I was a young rabbi, fresh out of seminary, eager to serve and make a difference. And now here we are, nearly 4 decades later, standing together at the threshold of a new year. The theme I have chosen for tonight happens to be the exact same theme of my first high holiday sermon 37 years ago. And in revisiting this theme, I feel as if, well, I have a different perspective, because the title of this sermon is called "Cherish the Moments." We say that a rabbi has one sermon and he preaches it to himself over and over again. So as a young man, I wanted to advise myself to cherish those moments, to think about those moments. And now, as an older man, I look back with reflection. And I want to say to everyone here, no matter what your age, stage of life, to cherish those moments. Last year, as you all know, just days before Rosh Hashanah, I became ill, well, quite ill. I remember saying to my wife, I think I'm sick. She goes, okay. No, I'm really sick. I think we need to go to the hospital, which are words that never came out of my mouth. At that time, it was 41 years of marriage. And I tried to hold it together, and by Tuesday morning, there we were at the emergency room. And all that I could say, or at least all that I can remember saying is, I need to make it to Rosh Hashanah. I need to make it to Rosh Hashanah. And my wife tells me, because I don't remember much, that they all looked at me kind of strange. Some thought, what's Rosh Hashanah? And others thought, ain't gonna happen. You tell them. No, you tell them. By the way, after I got over not making Rosh Hashanah, then I got to say, I gotta make it to Yom Kippur. I gotta make it to Yom Kippur. And I managed to make a video sermon, if you recall. But physically, I was really not able to make it. But I want to take this moment in time to thank someone for a moment in my life that I always cherish, and that is Michael Mayer. Because Michael had in his mind to do a mitzvah for me. How do you do a mitzvah for a rabbi? When all services were over for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, there was a knock on the door. It wasn't the Uber man, it wasn't the dash door. It was Michael Mayer. He brought over a shofar, and he blew it so that I would not go a year in my life without hearing the shofar. So thank you, Michael. I single him out, and I could single out everybody, because that is really what I hope for this congregation, is that we find ways of doing mitzvahs for each other without any need, desire, maybe even hope of recognition. We just do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. So thank you. Well, I made it through. And I remembered my father, who ended his career at 65 with a heart attack. And I said, I don't want to be that person. I want to be that person who has his health, has his spouse, and that together we do what everybody does. Go on a cruise. Isn't it written somewhere that's what you're supposed to do? The saying goes, man plans and God laughs. And we're all human. And we're all given a certain amount of time. Each life precious. And in the words of Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, the day you are born is the day God decides the world could not exist without you. And so whether it's 100 years or 50 years or somewhere in between, we should make one promise to ourselves and our loved ones and the world in which we live, not to squander our time or take it for granted. So here I am, after much thought, deciding to step down and spend more time with my family. And I do so with full confidence that this temple, our temple, will be in excellent hands. At least I thought that until a few moments ago, Cantor said, I changed my mind. Too late, Cantor. Last year was your audition and you did too good. How about Cantor? Did she step in a beautiful way? And I'm pointing to her, but I don't know where she is. Are you behind me? There you are. So thank you. And I think we all can feel proud of her and her ability to carry on not my legacy, but the legacy that she will create for herself when she becomes Rabbi Cantor Hutchings. And I look forward to that day. Muriel Rukeyser once wrote, the universe is made of stories, not of atoms. It's the stories, the moments that matter most, the encounters and interactions, the shared simchas and sorrows. And I've been privileged to be a part of some of your most powerful moments, whether in joy or in sorrow, or those sacred private meetings in my study where hearts heavy with regret pour out what might have been. There's a lesson in all of these moments, even if I haven't always lived up to those lessons myself. Few leave this world saying, I wish I'd spent more time working, or I wish I'd spent more time away from my family. But life has a way of occupying our time, and work is a big part of it. I remember wishing my dad had spent more time at home and less with his congregation. And I vowed to be different, but in the end, I was the same. So we all owe a deep deal of gratitude to the patient one, my wife, Joni. 42 years, not easy, not easy. And even if you are those who say, well, you married him, you knew what you got yourself into. Sure you do. No. Piece of cake. So to Jeremy, wherever you might be, patience. Patience as well. Cherish the moments. They go by too fast. This past week, I did a wedding for a woman who grew up in our congregation, was president of NITI. And as part of doing her wedding, I did a bedekin. And at the bedekin, which is the ceremony where you place the veil over the bride, I always end it this way. I have the parents and the bride and groom all stand, and I say these words. I want you to close your eyes and imagine that moment when first you set eyes on your son or daughter, and they were in the crib, and as you looked at them, you wanted one thing, that they would be safe. And that you looked at them and hoped that one day they would find someone who loved them as deeply as you do, in a different way, but just as profoundly. And this is that moment. And when I say those words, it's again as if I say them to myself, because you imagine your son or daughter as little toddlers, and then before you know it, it's their bar bat mitzvah, and then before you know it, they stand beneath the chuppah. Cherish the moments. They go by too fast. Over the years, I've buried a lot of people whose deaths left their family and friends with terrible guilt. This is particularly true of suicides and overdoses. And when these feelings are expressed to me, I often respond with the simple truth that, sadly, most people die the way they live. Now, what do I mean by that? It's a difficult truth, but one that actually, I hope, diminishes the guilt for those left behind. If no matter how hard they tried, they could do little to affect the severity of their loved one's mental illness or addiction, then their loved one's death can hardly be their fault. For some deaths are inevitable because people die the way they live. Sometimes as the end approaches, people want to make a dramatic change. I remember a friend, David, we'll call him David, who had 3 different types of cancer, the third of which was fatal. He came to see me during the last few months of his life. His energy was waning, and despite his promise to himself and his children that he would journal and record these last few months, last few weeks, last few days, he came up short, and he couldn't do it. And he was feeling guilty that he couldn't do it. And I asked him, have you ever journaled? And he said, no, I never journaled. And I said, well, why not? And he said, because I don't like it. And I said, well, I don't think you're going to change now. Just be who you are, David. In these last few months, be who you are. And that is going to be what's written in the book of life. I have one very sad memory that occurs to me that was also very tragic. It occurred when I conducted a graveside service, and this was decades ago. There I was saying the words that need to be said, bring comfort to the family. The casket was lowered, and the family left, and they said, thank you, Rabbi. Thank you so much for your words and for bringing us comfort. And I stayed behind as I watched the grave being filled in. I thought that I owed that to the deceased. And a young woman in her 20s came up to me, and she said, are you the rabbi? Apparently, she came after everyone left. She missed the whole funeral. And I said, yes, I'm the rabbi. And who are you? And she says, my name is Sarah. I said, Sarah, tell me who you are. And she said, I'm the deceased daughter. I had no idea. There was no mention of her when I interviewed the family. She was not asked as part of the family to attend the funeral. Her eulogy to her dad was, "I am Sarah, your daughter." I'll never forget that. And I'll never forget that I said to her, "Would you like me to say Kaddish with you?" And she said, "Yes, Rabbi, I'd like that very much." And so together we said, Yit Gadol v'Yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah. Since that fateful day, I have found family estrangement to be much more common. Than I ever knew. It is that deep, dark secret within families. It is easy to dismiss, "Oh, who can even remember what you said? What started the fight? It's no big deal, just pick up the phone. I'm sure your son, your daughter would like to talk to you. Go ahead, make up." Or perhaps you have feelings that one is a bad parent, or that you were a bad son or daughter. Who could ever find themselves in this position? But the reasons are complicated, and the pain runs deep. So I say, cherish the moments. They go by too fast, but with estrangement they go by painfully slow. Our lives are building blocks upon which every day, every memory is foundational, one to the next. We don't realize which moment, which incident, which word will set in motion a different course in our lives. We view the past with 20/20 hindsight, but we live our lives marching to the future. Cherishing the moments means just that, understanding the fragility of the moment and the importance of living in the moment. Not being afraid to confront our faults or our regrets. I recall another time when someone came to me after a close friend of theirs experienced a terrible loss. "Rabbi, what can I say to them? I feel so helpless." And I thought for a moment and I said, I'm not sure there is anything you can actually say at this moment that will make a difference. Not at this moment. But what you can do is just be present. Let them know that they are not alone in their grief. Let them know you love them and that you are there to listen. Let them speak their truth. Let them shed their tears. And let your strength be theirs. For sometimes words aren't needed. Just being there in the moment is enough. So cherish the moments. They go by too fast. There was one coincidence that I also remember. It's a happy memory. When I was visiting the hospital and I was getting ready to leave, I ran to one of our congregants. He looked at me and said, "Hey, Rabbi." I said, "What's up?" He said, "I'm a papa. I'm a dad." I thought for a second his wife wasn't pregnant. Get your minds out of the gutter. I said, "Mazel tov." I said, "We just adopted a little boy." And I was there at the very moment that the adoption occurred. Cherish the moments. They go by too fast. Another lesson I've learned is that sometimes it's best to let people be who they've always been, especially in their final days. I think of a friend of mine whose mother was dying 15 years after a debilitating stroke. Before the stroke, her parents, she felt were the best of friends, business partners, lovers, parents, grandparents. They were inseparable for 15 years. Her dad spent nearly every waking moment caring for his wife, her mother. He took her to the movies and plays, to their grandchild's recitals, the soccer games and graduations, to family dinners, shopping, museum, you name it. He never wanted to miss an important or even an ordinary moment. But now the time had run out. And she began to be frustrated with her father, saying, "Dad, it's time. Let her go. Let her go. What can I do to tell my dad to let her go?" And I said, "Why would today be different?" And she said, "Rabbi, because she's dying." And I said, I understand, but that's not how it works. If your parents were fiercely devoted to each other in life, they are going to remain that way even in death. There is no way that your mother and father are going to be separated. There's no way that your father will stop doting on your mother. Let them be who they are. And in this moment of their grief, do not try to change them. And this simple insight, somehow it was eye-opening. And I share it from time to time because sometimes we want to change people, we want to fix people, we want to make them different. And yet, we are who we are. And there are very rare times that someone changes in the last minute before they die. So whoever you want to be that person now. And be that person with each cherished moment that is a building block to your personality, your hopes, your dreams, your ideals. Because once there was a mother and a father who looked into that crib and had dreams for you. And now you as an adult, you have those dreams for yourself. Fulfill them. Let them happen. And cherish those moments that were, and cherish the moments that are yet to unfold. One of the most famous rabbis of the last century, Rabbi Israel Kagan, known as the Chafetz Chaim, was visited by a group of tourists when they saw his humble surroundings. It was a rickety desk, a few books, and they said, "Rabbi, where is all your stuff?" And the Chafetz Chaim, who was a very holy man, said, well, where's all your stuff? And they said, "But we're tourists, we're just passing through." And he looked at them and said, "Me too. Me too." As we reflect on the past and contemplate the future, we may find ourselves wrestling with regrets, with mistakes we wish we could undo. A colleague, Karen Kadar, who we had here many years ago, she shared with me this wisdom that resonates deeply. She teaches that life is a journey, and along the way we will stumble and make mistakes and sometimes lose our way, but she reminds us that these experiences shape us, teach us, and ultimately lead us to growth and understanding. And letting go of the past is an act of faith. It is the belief that the future is yet unwritten and that we have the power to shape it with our actions, our choices, and our love. This idea of letting go, of moving forward with faith, is beautifully captured in a poem by my favorite poet, John Riddell. "I have filed a restraining order against my past. It isn't allowed within 100 days of my heart. Regret has been such a stalker. It keeps sending me texts from a burner phone. It tries to slip back in under my long-form scars. It relentlessly tries to turn my family and friends against me. It follows me everywhere I go. It peers at me through my window from the shadows across the street. Yesterday always asks me to give it a few moments so it can explain the errors of my yesterways. But I have learned that if I give my old faults a second of my time, it will take a year. I finally had it. Enough! So I have blocked all my ancient bygones in order to keep my phone line open, to finally get a call from grace that doesn't go straight to voicemail. We must forgive ourselves for our past mistakes and learn from them, and then move forward, leaving space for the miracle of the present moment to dance inside us, and cherish the moments, for they go by too fast. And so as I conclude, I want to thank you all. Thank you for letting me be part of your lives. Thank you for creating with me moments to be cherished, moments that I will never forget. And if I had a part in making those moments more cherishable, I am grateful. So let's make a promise to ourselves to hold those moments close, to savor them, and never take them for granted. Because in the end, it's the moments we'll remember. It's the moments that matter. It's the moments that fill our neshama, our soul, our very soul, with meaning. Shana Tova Amituka, to a good year, a sweet year for us all. Amen.